video is to discuss the teamwork that occurred within our group, including Rachel Anzen, Krista Cowell, Maria Seltz, and Kevin Weisenberg from Group 1. We will explain the basic processes that we use to complete our past assignments, some difficulties and successes that we have experienced throughout the semester, our preferred methods of communications, and lastly, the management roles we have experienced. Our group chose to use the same basic process for each of the 3 projects from the semester. We found that it worked best for our group to meet together to discuss the project and our overall goals and ideas for each. Then we decided to split up each question into sections so that each member had an equal amount of workload. We established due dates for a rough draft, which allowed us ample time to take our draft to the writing center and have each member read through the draft for errors and structure mistakes. It was the manager's responsibility to ensure that all of the guidelines in the rubric were met, including font size, margins, and spacing. Process gains and losses are a large part of every team collaboration. We use the team productivity equation, which is actual production equals potential production plus process gains minus process losses. Our group meetings allowed members to exchange information and ideas, which encouraged social facilitation as we are learning new skills from one another. We also managed to create an equal load balance for each member by splitting up the writing for each project. For example, on Project 3, Rachel's section involved extensive analysis and was difficult to find information. All group members came together and added key concept terms and brainstormed ideas to help her finish her section on time and balance the workload. While creating process gains was relatively simple for our group, avoiding losses was more difficult. Although group maintenance is unavoidable, our group's biggest weakness was not being able to attend all meetings that were scheduled. There were only 2 to 3 meetings that all members were able to attend because of other work or school-related activities. This was a problem because not having all members attend meetings created conflicting viewpoints as well as our ability to set deadlines, which led to procrastination. According to Encyclopedia of Group Processes and Intergroup Relations, explicit coordination, also defined as planning, explains that most teams don't spend enough time planning when to meet and how meetings should go. This could have helped our group avoid process losses like group maintenance. Overall, our group was successful at creating process gains and avoiding losses, but there are still areas that could use improvement. We all have strengths and weaknesses that when carried into our groups result in individuals not performing as expected or performing better than expected. Each of these behaviors is a result of a motivation theory. Motivation is the set of forces that initiates, directs, and makes people persist in their efforts to accomplish a goal. Each theory uses different techniques to motivate individuals. Our group used the expectancy and reinforcement theories to describe and alter behaviors. Over the course of our 3 group projects, there were very few instances in which a group member did not perform as expected. One of those times was when Krista had an extremely busy week and did not complete her part of the project within our group's agreed-on deadline. Reinforcement theory would explain why our team did not perform as expected because in our team charter, we were not specific with the consequences of not having your part completed on time. The negative reinforcement was missing. Negative reinforcement is reinforcement that strengthens behavior by withholding an unpleasant consequence when employees perform a specific behavior. A way to improve Carissa and other members' punctuality would be to highlight the positive reinforcements, such as the better grades received on the projects as a result of each group member pulling their own weight by being timely. Every one of our group members have exceeded expectations at some point in time. A good example of this was when majority of group members, including the manager, were absent and Rachel stepped up and made sure the project was turned in on time, as well as the final pieces of the paper were put together and edited. A theory that explains my actions is the expectancy theory. Expectancy theory states that people make conscious choices about their motivation. The 3 factors that affect these choices are valence, or the attractiveness or desirability of an outcome, expectancy, or the perceived relationship between effort and performance, and finally instrumentality, the perceived relationship between performance and rewards. The balance of this situation was the attractiveness of receiving a better grade for a complete project. The expectancy in this situation is the fact that the more effort put into the final editing of this project would increase the success of the outcome. Finally, the instrumentality in this situation is shown when Rachel received the reward of gratitude from her team members as a result of completing the project.
When we started out on the first group project, we decided to communicate through email because it's an effective means to communicate through the university, and everybody is provided one, and we all have access to it.
The problem that we had with email was in the interpersonal communication process. This process involves the sender encoding the message, transmitting it to the receiver then decodes the message and understands that message. We had problems in the encoding and decoding of this message because of a lot of noise that we had in the process.
Noise is anything that interferes with the transmission of the intended message. The specific noise that our group had an issue with was that we chose the wrong communication channel.
When we transitioned from using group messages to using text messages, our communication substantially increased. We were able to give feedback much more quickly, and we were able to understand the messages a lot more clearly. Our group members had more access to text messages than they had access to email, so it was easier to keep the communication open and existing throughout the day.
In group messaging, our feedback to the sender increased. Feedback to the sender is a return message to the sender that indicates the receiver's understanding of the message. Not only did our group members understand the message more clearly when texting was used, but because it was more easily accessible, we were able to respond more quickly to communicate that we knew what we were supposed to be working on. Because I couldn't check my email very often as opposed to my text messages, I felt like the conversation when we were communicating through email was moving on without me.
Looking back, we took into account the expectancy violations theory. This theory examines how nonverbal messages are structured and states when communicative norms are violated, the violation may be perceived favorably or unfavorably. We had a communication norm to respond in a timely manner. We were not doing this in email, so by switching to group messaging, we all accepted the norm and this practice became more favorable. During our third group project, Carissa was our group manager, and she did a really good job at setting up meeting times and communicating with all of our group members to make sure that we could all be at the meetings and finding a place for us all to meet so that we could work more effectively as a group. Carissa did a really good job of managing our team. Managing is planning, organizing, and controlling. She did a good job of planning when our group should meet, organizing the room for us to meet in, and controlling how the meeting went.
Because of Carissa's exceptional management skills, we were able to complete the project on time and effectively. During our second group project, Maria was our manager. We had a problem with Maria because she was out of town a lot during that project and she was very hard to get a hold of and communicate with. Maria's leadership style was focused on production rather than focused on people. Because Maria was out of town, she didn't care about people's concerns and goals for the project, but rather that the project was completed and edited on time. Because of this, Maria lacked consideration. Consideration is the extent to which a leader is supportive and approachable. Maria's lack of consideration made it harder for our team to complete the project.
The Wall Street Journal says the manager asks how and when, the leader asks what and why. During the second project, I could have done a better job at being approachable and asking why and what our team could do to be better instead of how and when to get the project completed. This would have made me a better leader and would have helped our team to do better on the project overall. Looking back on the first three projects, we realized that each team member had both strengths and weaknesses. By analyzing each of these, we were able to fix our flaws and play to our strengths, coming together to make a better product than each of us could have on our own. Our team process, motivation, communication, and leadership all helped in our team's final success.